Have you ever been, like, completely lost in a movie? Or maybe a video game, where the sound just seems to be everywhere? Rain falling not just in front, but actually above you. Or maybe you hear a creature growling from behind you, even though, well, obviously there's nothing there in the room. Ever stopped and wondered, how do they actually do that? Well, today we're taking a deep dive into something pretty revolutionary. It's called object-based audio, OBA for short. And it really is this fascinating leap in how audio content is being produced now, how it's delivered and rendered. It offers this incredible immersion and personalization, too, unlike anything we've really experienced before.
Yeah, we've been digging into some really insightful stuff for this, specifically excerpts from a work called Object-Based Audio, Production, Delivery, and Rendering. And our mission, really, is to cut through all the technical jargon. We want to understand the fundamental shifts happening in audio. We're going to try and turn these complex concepts into, clear insights for you. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Imagine audio not as just a flat track anymore, but as individual, almost living things moving all around you.
It's truly fascinating, just thinking about how far we've actually come from traditional sound. And the creative possibilities this unlocks, it's huge. For creators and for you, the listener, it really is a whole new paradigm.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is a sound object, then? Sounds a bit sci-fi.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But at its core, a sound object is basically two things. An audio waveform, the sound itself, and then associated parameters. Metadata. And this metadata, it tells the system how to translate that sound into signals for your loudspeakers. Think of them mostly as individual monophonic audio tracks, recorded or maybe synthesized sounds. Actually, our source material uses a great analogy. It says an audio object can basically be thought of as a track in a DAW, a digital audio workstation.
Ah, okay, like in music production software.
Exactly. And in things like video games, these audio engines often treat sound objects as point source emitters. They're like the fundamental building blocks for these incredibly complex dynamic soundscapes. And they often have really rich metadata attached, stuff that determines their position, their movement, volume, even how they interact with the virtual environment, all in real time.
Right. But this idea, positioning sound precisely, that's been a goal for a long time in audio, hasn't it? We had early attempts.
Oh, absolutely. The concept actually goes way back. Early 1940s, believe it or not, there was this ambitious system called Fantasound. Disney used it in Fantasia.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Then, things evolved and we got the more familiar 5.1 and 7.1 surround sound setups in cinemas and home theaters.
Sure.
The desire for truly immersive sound was always there, but the technology just kept it somewhat limited, not very flexible.
And that brings us to that phrase from the source, until recently. This is the part I find really interesting. What changed? What was the breakthrough?
Well, the big shift really happened relatively recently. It was driven by a few key things happening together. The move to digital cinema was huge. Also, a massive increase in bandwidth, just the ability to move more data around. And then crucial advances in what's called parametric audio coding. See, before this, because of technical limits, even if you had individual sounds in the studio, they had to be pre-mixed, baked down into a small, fixed number of speaker feeds or channels, like 5.1 or 7.1. And those pre-mixed channels were just played back directly on matching speakers. No more processing needed at your end. You were locked in.
Right, stuck with whatever mix they decided on for that format.
Yes, exactly. But the game changer with object-based audio delivery is that it preserves way more spatial detail. And crucially, the artist's original creative intent. It preserves it all the way to the playback endpoint, wherever you're listening. So instead of being baked into one specific mix, the individual objects and their metadata travel with the content. This allows for just far more adaptability. And it means you can deliver richer, more immersive sound in pretty much any listening environment. It's all about maintaining that flexibility.
Okay, so stepping back from the tech for a sec,
Right.
what does this actually mean for us as listeners? What are the big wins here?
Well, our source outlines 5 key benefits, and they're all pretty significant. First, and probably the most obvious, is enhanced immersion.
Yeah.
This is about adding height channels, yes, but also allowing for really flexible rendering.
Yeah.
So the sound adapts to different speaker layouts, different room acoustics. Think about how that changes a horror film, right? A sound genuinely coming from above you, or feeling like you're inside the music at a concert.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Totally. Second is enhanced personalization. This is where you, the listener, actually get some control. Imagine being able to boost the dialogue in a movie because maybe you're hard of hearing, or you just prefer clearer speech, or turning down the background music in a game to hear footsteps better. That's real power.
That is incredible. So it's not just about what the creator intended, but also what I might need or want in that moment.
Precisely. Third is enhanced adaptability. This makes sure the audio sounds good, or at least optimized, across a massive range of devices. Everything from a high-end cinema to your soundbar at home, or even just your headphones. It scales intelligently.
Okay.
Fourth, enhance accessibility. This is really important. Think better support from multiple languages, video descriptions for the visually impaired, dialogue enhancement options. It just opens up content to more people.
That's fantastic.
And finally, number 5, it leads to more efficient production workflows and helps future-proof the content. Creators aren't constantly remixing for every new speaker setup or platform. They create this object-based master, and it adapts. That's a huge deal for them, creatively and economically.
Okay, that all sounds amazing. But there's got to be a catch, right? Does all this power come with, I don't know, new challenges?
Yeah, there is an inherent challenge. I mean, the benefits are huge, but it does add complexity. You're manipulating, encoding, transmitting potentially a lot more individual audio elements and metadata compared to the old channel-based ways. It's just a different way of handling audio data. More powerful, but more complex.
Right. Okay, so we've got these individual sound objects. But how do they know where to go? How does the sound engineer make sure that helicopter sound flies exactly where it's supposed to, no matter where I'm sitting?
That's where the idea of a frame of reference becomes absolutely critical. It's how you specify locations in space.
Okay.
Our source talks about 2 main types, egocentric and allocentric.
Ego and allo. Okay.
Yeah. So egocentric means relative to the observer. That's you, the listener. It's often used when studying perception, how your brain interprets sound based on your head position. But for creating content, allocentric is usually much more practical. This frame encodes the object's location relative to other things in the environment, like the room boundaries, or maybe the screen in a cinema. It describes the scene independently of any single listener's position.
Wait, okay, so if I'm listening on headphones, is that inherently egocentric then? Because the sound moves with my head.
That's a really good way to think about it for personal audio, yes. It's always relative to your ears.
Yeah.
But imagine you're a mixing engineer in a big studio mixing a movie. You can't base it on one person's head movements. You need something stable. When they choose a frame of reference for mixing, they think about 4 main things: how to capture the artistic intent best, how to make sure that intent survives being played back in different rooms, what tools make sense, and how to ensure it sounds consistent for everyone in the audience.
Makes sense.
So mixing engineers, they generally think and mix using allocentric terms. Their tools are often laid out relative to the screen or the room walls. They expect a sound placed, say, on screen halfway across to stay there conceptually. If they used an egocentric frame, a sound placed on the side wall in their long, thin mixing room might end up sounding like it's on the back wall for someone listening in a square living room. That's not good.
Right. Chaos.
Exactly. But with an allocentric reference, the sound is always described relative to the environment, like 1/3 left of the middle of the screen. It stays consistent regardless of the room shape or size. This is absolutely vital for cinema sound. You need everyone in every seat to get a similar experience. The source actually gives a great example. Think about characters on screen looking towards an off-screen sound. With allocentric audio, even if you're sitting way off to the side and the sound technically reaches your ears from a slightly different angle than someone in the middle, it still feels like it's coming from the correct location within the scene, matching where the characters are looking. It maintains that crucial audio-visual link, makes the whole thing seamless.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So we know where the object is supposed to be in this allocentric space. How does that instruction turn into actual sound coming from my speakers, making me think it's there? What's the magic trick?
That's the job of the audio rendering algorithms. These map that single monophonic sound object onto your set of loudspeakers. Their goal is to create the perception of sound coming from that desired location. Now, there's some very complex methods like wavefield synthesis trying to physically recreate the sound field. But mostly in professional audio, they use algorithms that approximate perceptual cues. And the main way they do this is through something called amplitude panning.
Amplitude panning, like volume control.
Essentially, yes, but a very sophisticated version. The core idea is that for each speaker you have, the system calculates a specific volume level, or gain, a normalized gain vector, technically. It assigns this gain to the sound object for that specific speaker. Think of it like adjusting dimmer switches on spotlights. You make some brighter, some dimmer, to create the illusion the actor is standing in one particular spot. With sound, by carefully adjusting the volume sent to each speaker, you trick your brain into perceiving the sound source as being located between the speakers, exactly where it's intended, even if there's no speaker physically there. And for sounds that move, these gains are constantly recalculated and smoothly interpolated over tiny fractions of a second. That's how you get that seamless movement.
Whoa, so it's not usually just one speaker making the sound, it's a team effort, playing with volume levels to fool my brain. That's clever.
It really is. Now, there are a couple of main approaches to this panning. First, there's directional, vector-based panning, usually called VBA. This one relies on the direction, the vector, from a central listening point, the sweet spot, towards where the sound object should be. Instead of just stereo panning between two speakers, VBAP typically uses triplets of speakers. It figures out which three speakers form a triangle surrounding the target direction, and then adjusts the volume between those three to place the sound precisely in 3D space.
Okay, triangles of speakers. Makes sense for 3D.
Right, and VBAP has had some improvements, like using different mesh shapes for smoother rendering and even adding the concept of virtual loudspeakers. So let's say you only have speakers at ear level. The system might create a virtual speaker position directly overhead at the zenith. This helps create smooth effects, like flyovers, even without a physical ceiling speaker, by cleverly using the existing horizontal speakers.
Ah, clever workaround.
It is, but VBAP isn't perfect. It has a key limitation. It can't really distinguish between objects at different distances if they're along the same direction line. An object far away might sound identical gain-wise to one much closer, just dimmer overall maybe. Also, as sounds move towards the center of the room, the transitions between which speaker triplet is active can sometimes be a bit abrupt, not always perfectly smooth.
Okay, so if VBAP has those issues, especially with distance and smoothness, what's the alternative? How did they fix that?
That leads us to position-based panning. And as the name implies, these algorithms focus on the object's position in the space, not just its direction from the center. A common type you might have already encountered, even in standard 5.1 or 7.1 mixes, is dual balance panning. It uses 4 speakers and works with those familiar left, right, and front-back pan controls.
Right, I've seen those.
So the 3D extension, especially for systems with height speakers, is often called a triple balance panner. This basically generates 3 separate panning values, one for left-right, one for front-back, and one for top-bottom.
Yeah.
These 3 gains are then multiplied together. And the really significant thing here is that this approach is fully continuous. Objects move smoothly across the room in 2D or 3D. And it gives mixers much finer control over how and when the base layer speakers versus the height speakers are used. It solves those VBAP issues of distance ambiguity and sharp transitions.
Wow. Okay, so we've really gone on a journey here from thinking about sound as just, a flat recording to these individual audio objects that can be precisely placed, moved around us, creating these incredibly immersive, personalized, and adaptive sound worlds. It's just a massive leap forward.
It absolutely is. And if you connect it back to the bigger picture, object-based audio, it isn't just some minor technical upgrade. It's really a fundamental shift in how creators can tell stories using sound. It gives them a level of control, and you, the listener, a level of customization that just wasn't possible before. It really boils down to preserving that artistic intent across all the different ways we listen now, making the experience richer, more consistent everywhere.
So thinking about all this, what really stands out to you, like imagine the future, live music maybe, or interactive VR, if every single sound can be its own independent object, how might that change not just what we hear, but how we actually interact with a performance or a digital world?
That's a great question, and it does raise another important point. As audio becomes more and more personalized, more adaptable because of OBA, what new challenges pop up? Specifically, how do we ensure a consistent, high-quality experience across literally every unique listening setup out there? It's one thing to render the object, it's another to guarantee it sounds right everywhere, from a multi-thousand-dollar cinema system to basic earbuds. That's the next frontier, perhaps.